This video is sponsored by Curiositystream. Finally, you exit the tunnel finding yourselves in a huge room dimly lit by a few soft braziers. And at the end of the ruined path, you see a hooded figure standing atop the stairs. This is the exact moment when you need more than 3D printed or crafted models to get that final push of immersion in your games. And that's what this video is about. Oops. That's what this video is about. These are things I need either to run or prepare for these moments in my D&D games that I can't 3D print. I don't mean things like improv or acting skills or years of experience as a DM. These are all actionable things you can use immediately or within a few days if there's something you need to purchase. First, hi, I'm Danny, the 3D Printing DM, and welcome to 3D Printed Tabletop, a channel where we cover all things 3D printing for your tabletop games. And also non-3D printed things for your games, at least today. My goal with this video is for there to be at least one thing you didn't know about or hadn't considered in this list. And if I didn't do that, I have failed you, viewer. Although I'm confident you will if you watch to the end. Let's start with the classic and probably the first thing you thought of after the intro scene. Really good music, and ideally a Bluetooth speaker to play it. Music is the ultimate mood setter for me and the one that makes a huge difference in my games. It's the difference between as the hooded figure lifts its head, you see a man looking at you intensely. You hear him softly say, "Daniel, it's been so long." You hear him softly say, "Daniel, it's been so long." And that's why I need amazing music. Doesn't need to be fancy, it's just gotta be appropriate for the scene. I use YouTube playlists, I use Spotify playlists, makes no difference. My suggestion is to make your playlist based on mood rather than place. And then use something like tabletop audio or RPG sounds to add sound effects or ambiance as the icing on the top. You know who's the king of ambiance though? His name is Sebastian over at Atmoseeker. Seriously, go check out his channel, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about after the video though. And why the Bluetooth speakers? Because they work so much better than my phone or my laptop, and it feels more natural when it's just coming from the background behind the players, and the sound quality is better than from my phone or my DM screen like on my computer. Battle mats. Now, you may have noticed that this decor was on a gridded mat. This is a battle mat, and they come in a variety of styles. There are simple, dry, or wet erase. There's ones with terrain, textures like this one, and then there's also these epic, fully handmade ones. I don't know if those even count as battle mats.
No, it's a wargaming table, not a play school mat.
Maybe?
A battle mat's some sort of agreement that you have with your wife in your cupboard, you know, that cupboard that you only can use half of and you've got to clean it out once every 6 months. That's what a battle mat is.
We're gonna skip those last ones here. So these are the battle mats that I use. They're called dungeon mats, and there's a Kickstarter running right now for a second wave of these if you are interested. I love the mouse pad texture, the stylized look. They're double-sided. They don't curve or bend except for on this table that's not flat, and they're very affordable compared to lots of the other options that are around. I use these every single game, and the variety of designs is it's perfect for me. They're a nice size also for most of the tables that I use, which is basically dinner tables when I go to people's houses. For me though, the brand and the style doesn't really matter. It's just having something underneath that generally matches the location and mood. That's what matters most to me. And while having a plain dry erase grid is really good when I'm playing on the fly and I don't have time to prep, I always prefer a location themed grid any day, especially when I'm playing with 3D printed or crafted props. Now for those of you asking, Danny, why would you use a battle mat when you can just 3D print dungeon tiles? I prefer to use a battle mat and adjustable terrain like dungeon sticks because it just gives me more flexibility and it's so much easier to just assemble and adjust on the fly. The alternative is using something like Dungeon Tiles, Dwarven Forge, or Up Unlock, and having to like pre-assemble rooms before and taking them like that, and it just doesn't allow me to be flexible if I want to change something up on the fly. And as a traveling DM, that is not the best for me. This next one, don't laugh, a camera, like this one. Here's how I use it though. First, before game night even comes, I like to lay out all of the printed or crafted stuff that I have or that I want to use or want to work with, and then I just get inspired by it. This helps me see the encounter in 3D, and I can see things like cover and height in the terrain better than I could if I drew it like I did here in my handy notebook. This also lets me make adjustments like adding places for the players to climb onto the roofs or adding perfectly placed barrels for the kobolds to pop out of. Now, before this setup ever gets used in a game, I take a picture of an interesting angle and an overhead shot, and I use the angle shot as inspiration for my box text, which is how I describe the location of the players. It's what you heard me describe at the beginning when I described the scene. As you can see, it makes me feel more like I'm in the scene and definitely helps me describe it better. The overhead shot gets uploaded into my campaign organization tool of choice, and then I can flesh out the write-up. I list out the monsters, their locations, and this way though, when I combine those methods, I don't have to use a map maker or someone else's map. I can take creativity and inspiration from the setup and from the things that I have and get the best of both worlds and have something prepared ahead of time that works well. And the most important way I use my camera, I forget the end of games all the time. So I always take a picture of where we end so that I can set up the same way again, since I'm always traveling again. And while you're working on your boards, why not get inspired by today's sponsor, Curiositystream? Curiositystream is a subscription streaming service that offers thousands of documentaries and non-fiction titles from some of the world's best filmmakers, including exclusive originals. Now, Curiositystream is like Netflix, but for nerds who love learning and history and science, and sounds kind of like me and I guess a lot of other people who do the same stuff that I do. And Curiositystream is also extremely affordable. It's under $20 a year. That is less than a set of metal dice and less than a spool of filament and way less than a bottle of resin. Nice. I really enjoyed this show, The Real War of Thrones, which, let me say, when it opens with this disclaimer, you know what, this is real shit, and most likely going to leave a much better taste in my mouth than the last season of that War of Thrones show that shall not be named. And it did not do that, by the way. So go to curiositystream.com/3D printed tabletop to get unlimited access to the world's top documentaries and nonfiction series. Just use special promo code 3D printed tabletop, specially made for our viewers, and you will save 25% off, which comes out to only $14.99 a year. So click the link in the description and use code 3D printed tabletop for those sweet savings. Now, on to the next item, which isn't 3D printed, but a lot of you with FDM printers are gonna get it. Filament boxes. Some brands of filament comes in boxes like this one. These are a perfect size for a lot of 3D printed things. Example, dungeon tiles, or what I use, dungeon sticks. Now before this, I would just put all of one type of thing into a grocery bag. Paint would rub off, things would break, it wasn't ideal. And what I like about these is that they're handy both for storage and travel. I can just pop these into my box of travel, and they also keep the mystery of what's inside. So it isn't like this. He stopped talking, guys. Hold on, he's reaching in there. What's he gonna take out? Holy. So these work really well for those of you who might be on a budget, who are already 3D printing stuff anyways, and you like organization. These are boxes that can easily be labeled too. Which brings us to our next item, storage containers. Now hear me out. Containers might seem like an incredibly obvious thing on this list. I know that, but it's not. It took me 4 years to learn and experiment with what I'm about to share. Not to get too personal, but I was diagnosed with ADHD last year, and one thing I learned was if I can't see it, it ain't there. At least to my brain. I know I have that thing, but I just don't think about it when I need it. Especially when there's so many nice and shiny printed things in front of me. Like all of the above. So I almost exclusively use transparent storage now. I can quickly see everything where it's stored, or it's out and visible for me to browse through visually. Even my box of travel is see-through, so I can see everything I have in there. And remember those filament boxes I just mentioned? The mystery of what's inside can also be a bad thing for me because I'm a very visual person. So if I don't use something every game, I'm much more likely to forget about it, honestly. I'll forget that I even printed it if I don't see it on my shelf. And if it's in a box like that, definitely not. So I made sure to only put the stuff in there that I use every game, like my dungeon sticks. Now, having minis and terrain stored in transparent containers, it's like YouTube thumbnails for me. It allows for me to quickly see what I have so that when I'm taking everything out on the table for pre-game inspiration, like I mentioned, I can see what thumbnails I want to click or what minis and terrain I want to use for that session or encounters. Understanding that my brain worked like this and switching to transparent containers really helped me get inspired by my models rather than overwhelmed or frustrated, even when it's still a glorious sea of unpainted gray or brown or whatever filament color I was printing in that week. It's literally been a game changer for me. So, is there something you'd like to add? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to support the channel, the best way to do so is to pick up a late pledge to one of our Kickstarters, or better yet, check out our Kickstarter Uncharted Lands that we have live right now as well. It's our biggest and our funnest one yet, and the best places you can get for your late pledges too. Don't forget to check out that special promo code from Curiositystream as well. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Happy printing and happy gaming.